Put it down.
You got to bite the bullet, right?
You gotta bite the bullet. We had to put it in regardless.
Yeah.
Break it all.
I know.
Good up, man.
Oh, it's 6:31. Time to go. Ready to start? We'll call this meeting to order. And, Derek, roll call.
Mayor Bibb.
Here.
Alderman Decker. Alderman Hudson.
Here.
Alderman Corbett.
Here.
Alderman Payne.
Here.
Okay, need a, adoption, a motion to adopt the agenda.
Make a motion to adopt the agenda.
Second.
Second.
Okay, any discussion on it? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. New business is the review the annual audit financial report for fiscal year 2022. Turn the meeting over to Jerry.
Yep, and I'm gonna turn it over to Jason Barnes, our finance director.
Okay.
Hi, tonight, Jared King and Jessica Brashear are gonna present, the audit report that we have put together. Every year you guys ask if, if everything is going well, and it is, again, this year. No findings, so I think that's the goal ultimately, and I mean, even past that, even the no finding thing, I think the next level is getting awards, which we're gonna attempt to do this year. We have added, if you notice in your audit report, it's approximately 30 pages longer this year. There's a few extra sections of, I guess it would be like financial commentary, I think is what I would call it, just as kind of what it is. I feel like from just a public general knowledge, I think that's what I would think it should be. And then there's several statistical schedules. If you guys love analytics and statistical information, it's in there. Even non-financial information is in there. So we had help from several other departments regarding non-financial numbers from parks, public services, police, fire, I believe library. Trying to think of everything that was involved in there. Basically every department codes, they help us with these statistical numbers, and most of them are on a 10-year period, so it goes back 10 years, or it compares like this year to 10 years ago. But I'm going to turn it over now to Jessica or Jared. I'm not sure which one wants to come up first. Jared.
So, Jared King with Craft CPAs. Thanks for having us here. Appreciate the opportunity to be able to present to everyone here, and at any point in the conversation or when we're presenting stuff, feel free to jump in and ask some questions. We will keep our discussion points intentionally brief, because I know that you guys have a meeting right after this. So I'm going to go over a document that you guys don't have a copy of yet. It's because we're still in draft form, but this is a letter that will go to all of you eventually once we're done with the audit. So next week sometime we'll have this finalized. But it just goes over some of the results of the audit and adjustments and stuff like that. So as Jason said earlier, the audit was very clean this year, no significant issues, and I do think, I'm excited to see if, what happens when this gets submitted for the certificate. So to go through some of the items that will be in this letter, the city did adopt a new accounting policy this year, GASB 87. It's a lease standard, so it's a new item that was adopted and run through the financials, but it didn't actually have a significant effect. But just want to make you guys aware. I know leases in the accounting world is a hot topic right now. So we didn't run across any significant unusual transactions, nothing odd that we noted. We like to let y'all know when that happens. Audit adjustments, we did have some audit adjustments, but there are a lot of standard entries that we're making that it's a timing issue where we're getting pension and OPEB information kind of after we need to get the trial balance from Jason, and so those were probably the majority of our entries were those, and that's just a timing issue, so it's not a reflection on any sort of bookkeeping issues or anything like that. We don't have any uncorrected misstatements. We're not aware of any that are in the financials. That's something we definitely like to report to you all. No disagreements with management, Jason, Rachel, anybody, and no significant issues or difficulties that we ran into. And then when you guys get this letter, there's a few schedules. One of them goes through, it's a summary of significant accounting estimates, and it'll just kind of describe what the accounting policies are, how management estimates these items, and it's things like depreciation, accounts receivable, allowances or reserves, the pension liability, OPEB. Those are the big items, are the pension and the OPEB liabilities. And then, because of all the funds and stuff, there's a schedule of audit adjustments. It's a couple of pages. Not that there's a lot of audit adjustments, but we walk through kind of fund by fund. And so when you guys receive this letter, feel free to reach out. You can get to us through Jerry or through Jason or Rachel, and we're happy to field any questions. And then I'll turn it over to Jessica, who will go over the actual financials that you guys have and highlight some of the new stuff we've got this year too, as Jason talked about.
Hello, Jessica Bashir with GRAP. So I'm just gonna kind of just jump right in because it's a big set of financials. So if you've looked at it and compared it to last year, it's like Jason said, 30 pages bigger because we added a bunch more schedules in the back so that you all could apply to get your GFOA certification. So if you turn to the opinion, it's going to be on the very first page. So the opinion might look a little different this year if you're comparing the last year to this year. There was a new standard that came out, and basically all it really did was it kind of shifted around the opinion. It moved it up to the front so that way readers, when they look at it, they see, okay, we've got a good, clean opinion, which is what you all had this year. And then the rest of it is pretty much the same as it has been in the past. It talks about the responsibilities of management, it talks about the auditor's responsibility, and it kind of just breaks it out a little bit more, and I think it makes it a little bit clearer for the reader. And then it goes on to page 3, and it kind of breaks out what information is required by like the GASB, the state, and then it talks about just the supplementary information that we provide just to kind of support some of the other statements in the front. And then there's just other information. And then that is your opinion. And then the next section starts on page 5. That's your management discussion and analysis. So this just kind of gives you a breakdown of last year to this year. So it gives you a little bit of comparative information, gives a little bit of how just the city did overall throughout the year. I won't really touch much on this because I'm going to hit most of what we did here in just a second. So if you're looking for some comparative stuff, this is kind of a great resource to look at. And then the next kind of big section, which starts on page 12, this is your statement of net position. So this page will show you the city as a whole. So it's gonna show you all your governmental activities, it's gonna show you all your business type activities. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out on here. Your net position this year, increased about 6.3 million over last year, which is great. And so a lot of that increase comes from, you had an increase in your cash, so you have more cash on hand than you did last year. You have about 3.6 million over last year, so that was a pretty big increase in your cash this year. And then another pretty significant increase this year is your land and construction in process. As you all know, you have this nice, beautiful building, and I know you all are working on many other projects around the city. And so your construction in progress increased about 19 million over last year. And then some of that will come out of construction in progress, place in service, and then so that number will potentially go down a little bit next year, just depending again on all the projects you have going on, whether they get completed. So because again, you have so many projects going on around the city, your accounts payable has gone up about 1.3 million, which is to be expected with the number and the amount of projects you guys have going on. And then again, you're going to see a theme, because of all the projects, you have more debt. So your debt has gone up about 14 million over last year, which, is due to the new beautiful city hall, the sewer treatment plant, and then just some of the other kind of smaller projects that will just accumulate. And then, your unrestricted, has increased 2.1 million over last year, which again is great. That just means you have some funds that you could use if you needed to. And then if you flip to page 13, you've got the statement of activities. So this kind of tells you how the city did in the current year, the current fiscal year. Again, it shows you on a entity-wide basis. So it's going to show you how your governmental funds did, how your business types did. So your expenses this year went up a little bit. And then one thing I did want to point out, if you look under the capital grants and contributions, you'll see that there's a $1.3 million contribution. That was your ARPA funding, the American Recovery Plan money. So you all will get, I think you've already received another half of that. So you're going to see that amount again next year. And then, let's see, your general revenues as a whole went up about 1.7. The majority of that increase came from your property taxes. So your property taxes went up quite a bit this year, so you got more, or your revenue went up quite a bit this year. So you had a positive change this year, so that's why your net position went up at the end of the year. And then the next few schedules, I won't really detail out because I think the first two schedules I just went over really give you a good detail of the city as a whole. And so the next few are page 14 is your governmental funds. So these are just all your governmental funds. And then again, it's kind of similar to the first schedule where you got an increase in cash. This just kind of shows you it more on a fund level. So it breaks it out so you can see it on a fund level. And then on page 15, so your government funds won't show any debt that you have. It won't show any capital assets. We do a conversion at the end of the audit where we convert and we actually place all that stuff on the books, and so that's reflected in your governmental activity. So that'll show up on your first two, those first two schedules. So this reconciliation here just shows you how we're getting from point A to point B. And so the biggest things that drive that reconciliation are your debt and your capital assets. And then again, on page 16, we just have, a breakdown of, you know, what each fund kind of looks like during the year. And again, mostly increases, which are great. And then on page 17, again, there's another reconciliation to show you how we get from point A to point B in your governmental, how it's converted. And then, the next two schedules on 18 and 19, you have a couple of what we consider major funds. We just do a little more testing around those. So these next two schedules, so your general fund and your park sales tax fund are kind of your major programs. And so we show your budget to actual for those funds up in the front. Towards the back, there's all the rest of your budgets to actual, but these just have to be shown towards the front. And so for your general fund, you all brought in more revenue than you expected, or that you had budgeted, and then you also had less expenses than you had projected, so both all positive there. And then for your park sales tax, which is on page 19, again, you had less revenue. That one you had less revenue than expected, and then your expenditures were less. So you all, when the budget occurred, you were going to have a negative fund change, but it was less than what you had projected. So again, still good. And so then on page 20, this is just your balance sheet for your business type activities, so your stormwater, wastewater, and I can't think of the other one. What's the other one?
Sanitation.
Yes. Yep, that's it. And so this again just kind of breaks it out and shows you a little more detail. Your wastewater fund is also considered a major fund. So that's why when you look at the schedule, it's broken out separately. Your other two funds are combined together, and then there's schedules in the back that break out those two, so you can see how those work together. And again, here, all increase in cash, increase in your capital assets, kind of the same story in the front. Yeah.
I've got a question on page 19.
Yeah.
The park sales tax fund.
Yeah.
Looks like the actual revenues were higher than budgeted. Why is it unfavorable on the total revenues?
So your final budget, you budgeted $988,000, but your actual was $950,000.
Okay, I was just doing the math up and down, and it doesn't add up. 787 plus 1260 is not.
Oh, yes, we corrected that after we finished all the drafts.
Okay.
Yes, you are right. That has been corrected. It is flipped. Yeah, no, you're right. Yes, that got caught like hours
So
after.
it should have been 987.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It will. These financials will also get like they'll get footed one more time. So we'll go through and like redo everything one more time before we send you that. Okay, so then on page 21, again, this is just your business type. This is what occurred just during the year. And then page 22 is just your statement of cash flows. This just shows you kind of how you used your cash for your business type funds. And you can see that your net change towards the bottom was a positive. So you had positive cash flows. And then I'm not going to bore you with the whole notes section, but starting on page 24 through page like 50 are just all of the notes to your financials. They just provide a little bit more support to some of the numbers, and they talk about your accounting policies and all that stuff. I did want to point out just a couple things. If you turn to page 35, this is your capital asset note. So again, because your capital assets increased so much this year, thought I'd just point this out in case you wanted to kind of see where all your assets went, where your increases were. So it's broken out between your governmental activities and your business type activities. And then on the next page, on 37, just gonna point out, this is your debt. The next few pages cover your debt. It shows you a roll forward where all your money went. And then it just kind of gives a breakout of, it tells you what your interest rates are, what your monthly payments are. And then on page 42, there's like a summary that shows you kind of what your future debt looks like right now, with all the debt that you have. And then, on page 43 is your pension plan. The state provides us with all of this information. There were really no major changes this year, with your pension. There were minor adjustments for inflation, but I think everybody's kind of seeing that across the board. And then on page 49 is your, OPEB plan. Again, nothing major here. Again, they just adjusted for inflation. It did lower your liability for your OPEB plan by about $382,000, so that was a little good adjustment there. Then the rest of it is just some notes. And then if you flip to page 57, the next little section that's in here is your required supplementary information. These are schedules just required by the GASB and the state. They want to see this information. They want to see 10 years worth of data. So we've just been compiling it on until we hit 10 years, and then we'll start dropping them off. But this is just related to your pension plan and your OPEB plan. And then once you flip to 61, so the next few schedules here, these are just kind of the supplementary. They support where we get any column that's combined in the front. So it just breaks it out so you can see all of your non-major funds and how each of those funds did. So it's just your balance sheet, your income statement, just broken down by all those funds. And then starting on page 66 is the rest of your budget to actuals for all the remaining funds that were considered non-major. So I won't go through those in detail, but and then starting on page 75 is your these schedules are just to kind of supplement. We group a lot of things on the first two statements, or else they would be 5 pages long, like your revenues and your expenses. So the next 3 or 4 pages break out all of those revenues, so you can see what makes up each of those revenues by fund. And then starting on page 79, these again are just some more schedules that are required by the state. And so most of them are related to your debt. They want to know all about the debt. They just keep adding more and more schedules related to debt. So starting from page 80 till 82, that just gives a breakdown of every loan that you have and the future payments and interest on that. And then on page 83, this is your schedule of expenditures of federal awards and state awards. So this is any money that you got from the state or the federal government, and it just rolls forward from year to year. And so you'll see on here, kind of towards the middle of your page is your ARPA funding. So you all received about 1.8 this year, and you spent 1.3 of it. So I know you've spent more than that at this point. But as of June 30th, you still had that much to spend. And then, if you flip to page 87, these are all the new schedules. So these are all the schedules that I know the finance team worked so hard on over the last year and a half to pull together. They had to pull 10 years worth of data, so it was really a lot of work on their end. I'll give them credit where credit is due. And so these are all the schedules that are required to get your certification. And so again, kind of like Jason said, they just help your users see a bigger picture of your city, from a financial standpoint, from a debt standpoint. It even goes into your demographic information, so you can see all of that. And I think in the copy that you all have, there's 2 schedules that are still highlighted. Those have also already been updated. We were waiting on a couple things from the state. So those are all updated and good to go now too. And then if you flip to page 111, so we also, because you all receive federal money, anytime you expend more than $750,000, you get what's called a single audit. And that's basically where we come in, we look at your compliance with that program. So anytime you get federal money, there's always, some strings attached to it. You have to jump through some reporting requirements. You have to, make sure you're using the money for what it was used for. So the first report that you see here on page 111, this is we have to test your internal controls to make sure that you have good internal controls in place, and that way, they have confidence in, how you're using your money, their federal money. And so we did not find any issues in your internal control. And then if you flip to page 113, this is the second report that we have to give. This report basically covers the compliance. So we get a compliance supplement from the government, and it basically tells us what all we have to test. We test that, and then we say whether you did good or not. You did. So you have a clean opinion on there too. So no findings. Again, you guys have had these scheduled, these 2 reports in the past. And so, again, they look a little different than in the past. They've moved the opinion up to the front. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then on page 116 is just kind of a summary of that single audit where it says, we looked at your financial statement controls, they look fine. And then your controls over your federal money looks good. So this is just kind of a summary of that, and it also shows what program was the biggest one you all had and which one we tested. And then the very last page says there were no findings. So that was very quick. It was a lot very quick. Does anybody have any questions for us? No?
Thank you.
Good job, thank you.
Thank you.
On a side note, both of them were promoted in the last year, I just thought I'd let you know.
We are adjourned.